La STM vous souhaite la bienvenue à bord.
Doing his best to get you there on time. This is In Transit on the Elias Macco Show, CJAD 800.
How great will this city be once they finish the construction? How great? When are they going to finish the construction, Elias? Never. Hey, over the weekend, my Sunday was my last day of vacation, right? Last day of vacation, and decided to drive out to the country. I have a friend, and he was with his parents at their home, which is very close to the U.S. border in a place called Havelock, Quebec, near Franklin. So I drove out there, and we went on a hike outdoors for an hour. And then we had a tea. Sitting down, we sat down around, I would say, 4 to 5 meters away from each other. And we had a tea outdoors. So we spent 2 hours together, was completely outdoors on a hike. Then I got back in my car, drove back into the city. Driving back into the city, took the Mercier Bridge back on Island. Then I get on the 20. I go through the Turcotte. And as I'm driving through the Turcotte, boy, I was just like, man, you know what? They did a great job on the Turcotte. The Turcotte, it was smooth, and it was lots of space, and it was a smooth drive. I was like, you know what? Except for the graffiti that they haven't cleaned up. There's so much graffiti on various portions, but the actual drive, how they did the Turcotte, bravo, kudos. To the Ministère des Transports, the Transport Ministry, that I think nailed the Turcotte reconstruction. And as I get through the Turcotte, I live downtown, right? Live near the station here. So I'm driving in. I go through Viger Tunnel, okay? And I say to myself, oh, boy, this is the next thing that we're going to have to go through. Let's find out now just how bad the reconstruction, the renovations of the Viger and Ville Marie tunnels will be over the next decade. Pierre Barrieau joins us on the line, transportation planning expert at University de Montreal. Pierre, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing okay, but I am worried about the next 10 years. So why don't you tell us, first off, why it's so necessary that after the last 10 years we went through with the Turcotte, that we put ourselves through this?
Well, the first thing we have to understand is that basically we had a good run. All of our infrastructure was built mostly in the 60s and the early 70s. So everything was still in a good state of repair. And now what we're hitting is what's going to be the situation for the next 100 years is everything's going to be under construction always because it has to be maintained.
Gotcha. But and if we look at these, if we look at these two, the Ville Marie and the Viger tunnels, okay, just what if you got to do work on a tunnel, my worry is not a lot of detours possible when you're in a tunnel. So it seems to me like this is going to be quite the doozy. What are we expecting here? What's going to close? How will this affect our listeners?
So basically, the work in terms of budget, it's about half of Turcotte. However, it's going to be over 10 years. Mm-hmm. So what they're doing is they're phasing the work to stretch it out a bit and the impacts. However, the impacts will be felt at some stages and there will be some significant closures, but a lot of the work will actually be done behind the scenes. It's redoing the electricity, redoing the sprinkler system, redoing all those types of services. However, there's going to be major work that's starting already this year. They're going to be closing the exit for De la Montagne Saint-Jacques, which is a very busy exit.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be closed for at least a year.
At least a year. Boy, I would, while the Canadians still cannot have fans at the Bell Centre, now's the time to close that exit, because I can't imagine getting to the Bell Centre for a hockey game once we're all back with that closed.
It would be absolutely horrendous. So at least that portion, they're forging ahead, and so that's the main element that people will see. However, next year, 2022, or towards the end of 2021, we're going to start seeing major construction for the highway, but it's going to be for people who are living in the city because they're going to be rebuilding the overpasses for Saint Laurent Boulevard and Saint-Urbain.
Gotcha.
And that means major closures for long periods of time, that they're going to have to dismantle those two bridges and rebuild them.
Now, can I ask you, at the end of the day, when 10 years from now, will there be more sections of the tunnel covered overhead? Because there are some portions that are exposed, right? Like east of like Saint Laurent.
Exactly. Right now, it's open from more or less Saint Laurent all the way till before the Viger tunnel. So between Ville Marie and Viger, there is going to be there's a few projects that are in the works. There's the convention center expansion that might cover a block or so. And there might be expansion of the CHUM hospital. But if not, it would be extremely expensive to cover other sections. And it's not planned within the budget of these 10 years of construction. Right now, it's just basically bringing it back to a state of good repair. And that way we'll be good till about 2080.
Now, unlike the Turcotte, which was completely reimagined, the lanes, the design, the exits and all of that, the entrances, all redone. In this instance, when we look at the Viger and the Ville Marie tunnels, what we're looking at is just making it new. There's not going to be reconfigurations per se.
None whatsoever. It's basically they'll be ripping out the tile, tiling it, putting new lights, repaving, and working on the drainage, ventilation, that type of stuff. But there's no changes whatsoever in terms of the configuration or how it's going to feel. It's just basically going to be safe. There's no longer going to be those huge potholes right after the Champlain Bridge exit.
And can I ask you, because it's always been a harrowing experience. But so you mentioned the de la Montagne exit. Any other entrances that should be top of mind?
For the first phase of the work that's starting right now, that's the only exit that they're going to be working on.
Okay.
However, they're going to have to be redoing all of them.
Wow. Okay. Well, listen, Pierre, thanks for coming on the show. We'll catch up again.
Sounds great. Have a great day.
That's Pierre Barrieau, transportation planning expert at University de Montreal.